Good evening, race fans. It's time for Podium Esports coverage of the Esports Racing League season opener, live from the virtual Michigan Speedway in Brooklyn, Michigan. It's the Belly Up Sports 110.
YouTube and the ERL Racing Twitch channel, or wherever you may be tuning into our broadcast this evening. I am James Pike, the voice of Podium Esports, alongside Justin Prince, our producer tonight, Ryan Bauer, and of course our esteemed guests and the owner of the Esports Racing League, Anthony Alfredo, as we bring you coverage of the Belly Up Sports 110 line tonight from Michigan International Speedway. JP, I turn to you first as Podium Esports begins its second season of coverage of the ERL, and we had some drivers. We have a lot of drivers this time around. This series is far, far bigger now that we have jumped into the fall season.
It's going to be very competitive, to say the very least, this campaign. You've got a mix of eNASCAR, Coca-Cola iRacing Series competitors, such as Blake Reynolds and Jimmy Mosbach, but many more, such as Nathan Lyon, able to drive their way into the field. Many drivers who are at the top of the road to pro standing, such as Eddie Kerner. Many others who are trying to claw their way into the Pro Series in the top 25 and the top 20 in the points, such as drivers like Matt Denson and many others. And don't forget about some of the big personalities, such as Justin Patello. He's in the field for tonight, and many more. This is going to be very competitive. It's been compared by some as a top split official NIS type of field tonight that can demolish any order night. It's going to be competitive.
And now it's time for the starting grid for tonight's Belly Up Sports 110.
We bring you tonight's starting grid with Spencer E. Burns, who puts down the fast time of 38.760 to take the pole over Alec Martinez. Adam de Blasio will start from third, fourth through the 25 of Evan Rice. Chris Rabel begins from the fifth spot this evening. Sixth will be Brandon Bulos. Brandon McKissick, ERL Season 1 veteran, starts from seventh. Eighth will be Blaze McKinney. Eddie Kerner, winner of the Landon Castle qualifying challenge at Darlington in May, starts ninth. Cody McCauley is the ERL veteran. JP, he'll start from 10th.
Colton Salick starts all the way in P11 alongside Justin Brown in row number 6. Presley Soares starts in 13th, one of the former eNASCAR Ignite Series competitors, alongside one of the top competitors in the sportsman class back last season in Lucas Cram. Alexander Croque starts in 15th alongside popular and very frequent racer on the Sim Series and Sim Races in Victor Williams. Tucker Minter starts alongside our own Blake McCandless. He's in the field in P18. Alex Bell and Matt Danson round out your top 20.
Anthony Burrows begins from 21st. 22nd will be Nick Indelicato. Kevin Brown starts from 23rd, and 24th will be Eli Hinton. Dylan Bajan begins from 25th this evening. 26th of the grid belongs to Yusuf Ghali. Nathan Rabideau starts from the 27th spot. 28th will be Robert Hanrada. Colby Wells and Ryan Kendrick round out the top 30.
Last drivers on the grid, you see loading up John Midget deep in the field. Colton Zimmer also deep in the field as the last qualifier. Drivers who did not elect to take a time include Blake Reynolds, Jimmy Mullis, Justin Patello, Zachary Phillips, Jared Ikas, along with a new driver and Meraki Drake. Braxton DeWeese, a fan favorite in 39th. Nathan Lyon rounds out the 40 entries today here at Michigan.
We take you quickly to the track facts. This is Michigan International Speedway in Brooklyn, Michigan. A 2.0 mile, 3.2 kilometer oval that is shaped like a D and opened in 1968. 18 degrees of banking in the turns, 12 degrees of banking on the front stretch, 5 degrees of banking on the back stretch. We'll go for 55 laps, 110 miles, so just under 180 kilometers in tonight's Belly Up Sports 110, and it's a warm one today in Michigan. 80 degrees Fahrenheit air temp, 109 degrees Fahrenheit track temp. We're glad to have you with us as Podium Esports bring you coverage across ERL social media channels as we get set for season number 2 of the Esports Racing League presented by SimSeats. Green flag is out and we are underway with the Belly Up Sports 110 from the Irish Hills in Michigan, and Spencer Burns gets that big drive on the inside, gets around Alec Martinez, who will lead the field off into 1 and 2, followed by the 48 of Adam de Blasio, JP.
And a great start as to be expected by these competitors. This could be important. Track position as we've seen in qualifying. Some of these drivers had to qualify their way in. The difficult part's going to be trying to break away. We see it with the Coke race that many drivers stayed grouped together, expecting the same tonight, especially with these drivers having to deal with what could be a slick racetrack and a slick setup.
We saw Eddie Kerner drop back a little bit further in the field. That LCQC winner, he threw down that fast chime at Darlington and made a win $10,000. And it looks like it's a strategy play here. So I think it's as good a time as any to bring in the master of real-life race strategy amongst ERL drivers himself. Mr. Anthony Alfredo joins us at the booth. And Anthony, if you're dropping back early at Michigan here, and you are sliding way back into about 30th, where you can find Eddie Kerner and company, what's your game plan here, and why would a driver want to give up that much track position so early?
That's a great question, James. And what I did earlier today was I hopped on and ran a few races myself, knowing I wasn't going to be competing tonight, so that I could provide a little bit more valuable insight for a question just like that. And I think where that begins is the right front tire wear here is tremendous if you push too hard too early. So if you're pinched down on the bottom and you've got the wheel turned more and you're wearing that right front tire more than if you were in a higher lane, that's why you see these guys run a little bit higher, especially because that very bottom lane actually has less banking. So they're not going to rush the issue too early here. They got plenty of laps to make something happen, so they'd be better off getting in line, saving their tires a little bit. However, you never know if a caution comes out, and if you push hard to get the track position earlier, it might work out in your favor.
It's a smart move. It's a veteran move if you're playing the long game like it seems like Eddie Kerner might be doing. And JP, everybody in here has some pretty proven credentials because you could not just walk up into the second season of the Esports Racing League presented by SimSeeds. You had to go through a multiple stage qualifying process if you were new to the series. The top 5 drivers from the ERL Sportsman Series and Premier Series in the spring were locked in to this season's single series ERL. Just the Cup cars racing in the fall, no Cup and Xfinity car racing like we had in the spring. So you had 10 drivers locked in there, but the other 54 that have made it into the league first had to be the top drivers in the top 80 in the time attack that was set up at Darlington Raceway in the heat of the summer. And then that group of 80 was split up into 2 fields of 40, and they raced qualifying races of 50 laps at Rockingham Speedway 1 week ago. The top 27 from each of those races made it into the ERL for the fall. So you've got some proven credentials here. You've got some drivers who really know what they're up to. It's not just like anybody can race here because it isn't good enough. You have to be skilled in order to make the ERL.
Yeah, and we're seeing the best of the best for a very good reason here. Lots of competitors we've seen and multiple different broadcasts, James. Do strong performances. Spencer E. Burns, he showed flashes of good speed ever since he joined Low Line Racing, for example. He's already fallen behind a man known for being very fast in fixed setup racing, Adam de Blasio. He's always a threat in NIS fixed competition in the top split events. Yeah, Brandon Bullios, who's currently in the second line. You see him peeking around, but Lucas Krim is on the apron.
Lucas Cram, champion of the ERL Sportsman Series from the spring with a big send down there out of turn 2. I suspect he probably got some help from behind and got loose on corner exit. Meanwhile, up front, Spencer Burns has jumped out ahead of everybody save for Adam de Blasio, who somehow, some way has managed to build up about a car length lead, which is very difficult to do here, Anthony. Just with the way the draft works, it's very tough when you got cars bunched up in a pack like they are to get away from anyone.
Absolutely, it makes it very difficult, and that's one thing I learned today was I'd actually taken the lead on lap 1 of an official A-fixed race that I ran, and I felt like I was going to start pulling away there off corner exit a couple times, and they reeled me right back in, and I was kind of a sitting duck. I think one of the things you could compare this to is actually speedway racing at Daytona or Talladega, and that's what we see right now. Some of these guys running 2 and 3 wide all the way around the racetrack, and they're staying in line, pushing each other, knowing that when they're in line and you have help from behind and maybe even some tow from the guy in front of you. And by tow, I mean the air and the draft sucking you up to the guy in front of you. You just need to stay in line and take advantage of that so that the whole field, or if the whole field does that, they'll just go faster as an entire group rather than slowing each other down by getting too racy.
We'll see how wild it gets. This is about as close as you can get to plate racing without actually plate racing, and we'll have a little bit of that later on in the season properly, JP. This series goes to both Daytona and to Talladega, and to the Daytona Road Course next week, just like the real-life NASCAR Cup Series. So if you were worried that you weren't going to get your fair share of plate racing, don't be. It's just coming up a little bit later in the season.
Yeah, and don't forget there's a good mix of various different skill tracks in there too, like Worldwide Technology Raceway is going to be tricky for some drivers. Darlington going to be tricky. Richmond's back on the calendar for 85 laps in mid-September. You also have the Charlotte Roval, and don't forget about the tracks like Kansas and Texas, some of the harder mile-and-a-half tracks, along with Martinsville and Phoenix to end off the calendar. It's not a cakewalk to win the championship. You're going to need to be consistent, and with the talent pool we've seen tonight, and with the fact that many drivers will have to qualify to win in each week, it's going to be tricky to see how these competitors can keep the consistency up as this season goes on.
You might have noted a little bit earlier in the broadcast, we said that 64 drivers made it into the Esports Racing League presented by SimSeats for the fall. Only 40 of them will start each week, and that's because we'll have qualifying sessions up before each feature race, and we're going to send about 20 people home, which is an interesting quirk, I think, of ERL. And Anthony, talk a little bit about the structure. What was the reasoning behind setting up such a big group to get pared down into one race, and why the significantly larger size of the league than the fields that you can race week in and week out?
That's a great question. I think it does two things. It provided more opportunity for more drivers to make it into the Esports Racing League this season. But another thing it did was it kept it very competitive because you don't see the same drivers on track every single week necessarily. You do have those 10 lock-ins from each last year from each series previously. However, allowing more drivers to have a shot to race each week allows us to make it a little bit more exciting for not only the drivers but even the fans, because we're sending cars home. We have more than enough cars for a full field each week, which is very exciting. And one unique thing was we didn't just open it up to a whole bunch of people. We were able to do that while maintaining the exclusivity of the ERL. And what I mean by that is we still have the time attack session where, as you mentioned, top 80 made it in, but we had to narrow that number down to 54 to match up with the 10 from last year. So we have 64 total drivers in the league, as you previously mentioned, but only 40 start each week. So it's still exclusive, yet at the same time, not the same amount of people race every single week, and it's going to make it interesting for things as the points come shaken down throughout the rest of the season, and the championship title is in near reach for a lot of guys.
And the most important point, I think, to take away from all of that, no one is safe. We are not immune from a situation like what Team Penske went through in 1995 at the Indianapolis 500. They dominated the race the year before. The next year they came back. All three of their cars failed to qualify for the race. You think of James Hinchcliffe with Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports a few years ago as we run on board with Jimmy Mullis. And so much can happen, I think. So much can change from one week to the next that you may not see the same people every week. You may see the points leader miss it on qualifying and not even qualify for the race, JP, which is going to be wild, I think, above all else. It's going to keep everybody on their toes week in, week out.
Let me put it this way. I was checking in one of those time attack qualifying sessions for tonight. The difference from first to 30th is something you would see more so on the dirt side. Within a tenth of a second, put you from the pole to P30. It was that type, and that was in one grouping of drivers alone. It can be tricky to make your way into this series, to say the very least. But a couple drivers have been able to cut their way to the field. We've been looking at Jimmy Mullis. He's a plus 26 already in this race so far. And you can tell based on line, just able to hold a little bit more throttle on corner entry while not burning up his stuff, while having the confidence to take it 3 line, like we just seen right there to get up to P7.
Look at Jimmy Mullis make the move. The defending champion of the Esports Racing League presented by SimSeats, and the driver for Richmond Raceway Esports. Underneath there's one car up on the fence and one car sideways, sliding across the back straightaway. It's Blaze McKinney, I believe, that ended up going around. A lot of drivers there sideways here, a lot of drivers in trouble. Let's see who ended up in the fence. It was actually Victor Williams in the East Carolina car, the Pirate Mobile, who got sideways and nearly brought out our first yellow, coming out of turn 2 that last time by.
And it could have been a disaster, to say the very least. We'll try and take a look at this right here as it ended up coming right on the corner exit at turn 2. One of the tricky things when it comes to the fixed setup is when you go below the first seam, you can bobble back and forth. That's what happens happened, got a bit loose, hit from the back end by Danson. Danson drifted up, just hit Victor Williams and barely avoided smacking Reynolds. We stay green.
Continuing the race under the green flag here, Jordan de Blasio continues to lead. Spencer E. Burns, Braden Boulos, Evan Bryan, Jimmy Molos, and Justin Brown there in that number 81 machine. We haven't talked a lot about Justin Brown. Chris Rabel, Presley Saw, Brandon McKissick, all right in line and all just sort of hanging out waiting to make things happen, JP.
Yeah, that's to be expected. Just be patient, keep the track position. It's very difficult at times to pass here, mind you, James, especially with it being fairly grouped up for at least the first 20 laps. It's once the dirty air kicks in the tire where it really starts to settle in, I think. That's where we start to see a little bit of separation at times. Not so much this season compared to last year, but we're starting to see little packs now break up from groupings of 6 through 8, or rather I should say groups of 20 or 25 to groups of 6 through 8 across the field early on.
You're starting to see that, Justin, getting all the J's mixed up. But you make a valid point, and Anthony, I want to bring you in so you can explain to the folks at home what you can expect when you see everybody break out just a little bit like this. Yes, there's some elements of non-plate racing, but just with the way this package pans out, you have a few elements of restricted plate racing that do sort of play in here, and I think the playing of the draft and the momentum might be one of the biggest pieces that you can pull from Daytona and Talladega and bring over here. How important is it to work the momentum and get around some of these drivers in front of you if you get a good run on corner exit?
It's definitely huge, and it goes back to what I was saying earlier about having that help from behind. At a super speedway, we often see someone try to make a single car pass, right? They'll try to pull out a line and make a move by themselves, and they hit that clean air, and it's kind of the opposite. We always talk about clean air helps at a lot of tracks. Well, when you're pack drafting and everyone's so close to the same speed, when you pull out a line and you have all that clean air packing against the nose of the car, it slows you down and you lose a lot of speed. So unless you have enough momentum to complete the pass, it makes it very difficult. As we see this right now with Jimmy Mullis, he pulled out a line, he didn't quite have the momentum to get it done, and he's going to try to build it back off the corner to take the lead.
Jimmy Mullis has come from 34th on the grid to be 3 wide, maybe 4 wide for the lead. Here comes Braden Boulos to the inside, but everybody else backs out. It's going to be that 46 Jimmy Jam to the point in the Coca-Cola Energy Toyota Camry for Richmond Raceway Esports. You know, he'd love to back up his championship campaign from a season ago with the victory in the first race of season 2, the Spelling Up Sports 110 from Michigan International Speedway. And I think if you really want to test to how good some of the drivers are in this Esports Racing League presented by SimSpeeds. How about that? That was maybe, what, 20 laps that he took to drive through the field. JP, impressive stuff from Mullis, and we're not even halfway through the race yet.
He didn't even break a sweat, mind you. He just made it look completely easy. The tricky thing, again, though, is can he hold on? As we've seen, once you get the clean air, drivers are able to pull the draft right on back and make moves. Keep in mind, his fellow co-drivers, Blake Reynolds, plus 17th and 16th. Nathan Lyon is still deep in the field in 17th, while Blake McCandless is just up the road from some of these competitors, still stuck in this grouping.
Buried here a little bit back as we ride on board and see if we can figure out what's going on with Nathan Lyon in that number 6 machine for Roush Fenway Racing. Of course, this is the car that Zach Novak won the championship last year in the eNASCAR iRacing Series, and Lyon took it over for 2020 and has had some solid runs, was very strong at Charlotte Motor Speedway in May. He and teammates Colin Keister in the 17 machine picked up podium finishes in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series event there. Lyon's still trying to charge his way through the field, but it's been a really solid effort from the 6 machine. Started dead last. He's up to 17th, so maybe not quite the track position that Mullis had or Reynolds had, but you got some eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series drivers beginning to make their way towards the front of the field as we make our way towards the halfway point of tonight's race. And Anthony, I think you've seen a lot of these drivers, especially with the way life has played out with the pandemic of the last few months. It's given, I think, a lot of these drivers an opportunity to showcase their abilities, but it's also made a lot of the real-world drivers take note. What have you learned from some of the pros of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series since March, and what have you learned about them, both as drivers and as people, since we entered the pandemic?
I'm glad you asked that because I've gotten very close with quite a few of them. Obviously, I've been involved with the iRacing community for quite a long time now, especially since I've started the Esports Racing League. But during quarantine, I was on more than ever because I was competing in the NASCAR Pro Invitational Series events that they put on for all us real-life drivers to compete in. And Blake Reynolds, who is actually technically a teammate of mine because he drives for Team Dillon Esports, and Austin Dillon's my teammate in the Richard Childress Racing side of things in the real world. So I've gotten close with him, and I've had his help along with Jimmy Mullis and Zach Novak, the Richmond Raceway Esports teammates. And I've raced a lot with them even heading into before quarantine started. And when it did, we came up with our own team. It's called the Bot Squad. And we actually won a Pro Invitational Series event. They were Jimmy would help crew chief me along with Zach, and the other would Spot. And it was just a great time, and I got to know them really well. And all these guys are just such great people, and they're fantastic racers here on iRacing. So it's really fun to watch them go to battle.
We'll take a moment to remind you all that tonight's broadcast of the Esports Racing League is presented by Belly Up Sports. Belly Up Sports is the internet sports bar. And whether you like podcasts, forums, or articles, Belly Up Sports has you covered. They aren't ESPN or Yahoo or Deadspin or Barstool, nor do they want to be. They are the people you want to hang out with, not the people you want to avoid. And they invite you to belly up with them at www.bellyupsports.com. 25 laps complete of 55 here in the Belly Up Sports 110 at Michigan. Adam de Blasio and Jimmy Mullis are side by side for the race lead. And we've seen a lot of these drivers who started in the top 10 maintain their track position for the most part. Mullis and Justin Brown, who was fourth that last time by, are the two outsiders in the top 5. Blake McCandless has come up from 18th to 9th, and Presley Saar from 13th to 10th. So track position, you don't necessarily think it matters all that much. And I think in a sense, JP, it's not all that important because you got the ability to run wide and you take it 3, 4, 5 wide if you need to here. It's not like this is an aero racetrack, but in terms of being close to the front, I think that's where we're seeing the value in track position, just because you've got to find some way to get up to the front pretty quickly, and obviously that's going to be difficult if you start in the rear of the field, but I think especially more difficult as this field strings out, which is why I think Jimmy pushed so hard at the beginning to get up to the front. He knew that if he waited 5 or 10 laps longer to make his way to the front of the field, it would take him about 15 or 20 laps beyond what it did to get up to P1 at the end of this.
Kind of hit it right on the head there, in fact, to try and get this position, because we're reaching the midway point of this race. This time by, you can split up the race halfway if you want to try and make it on field from here to as well, James. So wouldn't be surprised to see pit stops the next couple laps or so for drivers on that strategy. And it's harder to try and get up to the front if you don't have a caution flag, when you have to, say, make a green flag pit stop and everything gets spread out, like we've seen with the Coke race when there were several green flag pit stop cycles.
And before we get to pit stops, which may be coming here soon, it's time to bring you tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break, which as always is brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in the Australian Supercars, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the World of Outlaws, the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and more. Jimmy Mullis, your race leader over Adam de Blasio. Spencer E. Burns rides in the 3rd position. 4th is where you'll find Braden Boulos at the moment. 5th to Brandon McKissick. Blake McCandless is up to 6th. 7th is Evan Rice. Eddie Kerner runs in the 8th position. 9th is where you'll find Justin Brown, and Team Dillon Esports driver Blake Reynolds driving the Coca-Cola car in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. Holds the last spot in the top 10, JP.
The driver right behind him, a Technical Alliance member, Nathan Lyon, is in P11. Anthony Burrows in 12th. Alec Martinez, one of the drivers, fighting for a bubble spot in the Road to Pro Series in 13th. Chris Ramos back in P14 after starting in the top 5. Presley Saar is 15th. Dylan Basin with a quiet race in 16th. Macaulay 17th. Kevin Brown, Matt Danson, Tucker Minter round out your top 20, James.
Colton Salek is 21st. 22nd is Alex Bell, ERL veteran from Season 1. Ryan Kendrick is 23rd, and Lucas Cram rides in 24th. Another ERL veteran named Alexander Kremke runs in 25th. 26th is Nathan Rabideau. John Midget runs in 27th. Jared Ickes, 28th. 29th to Eli Hinton. And the last car in the top 30 is the 16 of Nick Indelicato.
It's going Very talented driver is deep in the field, though, back in 31st. He's fighting with Blaze McKinney, who started in the top 10, and is back there around 31st, 32nd. J-Bo's back in P33, a quiet race for him. Braxton DeWeese, a quiet race, only a +5 to 34th. Robert Henrata is in P35. Zachary Phillips, Kobe Wells, Colton Zimmer, Milwaukee Drake round out the 39 drivers currently running, as well as Victor Williams. Should note the 09 and 07 in this 40-car field, have come down for pit stops.
And this is an interesting one, and Anthony, I want your opinion on this because 55 laps is just beyond a regular green flag run here in Michigan, so these drivers are going to have to stop once. The question is whether or not you stop now thinking that this race might go green the rest of the way and you get the dividends off the short pit, or if you wait to see if we get a late yellow flag and then come in under the yellow and get tires and fuel for a sprint to the finish. What's the call if you're in the driver's seat or it's out the pit box?
That's a great question, and that's one of the many reasons why I'm a driver and not a crew chief, James. But we'll see what happens here. I think one thing I've learned so far from the real-life side of things that seems to apply very well to the virtual side of things here on iRacing is what the leader does. And if we see Jimmy Mullis pit right here, that's going to change a lot of things, because as the leader, that's going to make a lot of people interested in running it really long, and that might be someone like Blake Reynolds right now, who's fifth. These top four might follow Jimmy down pit road, and in Blake's situation, if he runs it a few more laps longer, he might get a caution and be the leader, and that'll make him like Superman. He'll be on the freshest tires, and he won't lose as much ground making a green flag pit stop. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. We've seen some guys pit from further back in the field, but I think we'll really start seeing some strategy come into play once the leader pits.
Blaze McKinney has come down pit road. Colton Zimmer as well. Looks like we've got one a little bit further back in the field coming down pit road this time by. A few more there. Alec Martinez is down, as is Yusuf Kali, as is Eli Hinton. And then you've also got one more car in for service, Robert Hanrada in the 37 machine. So, Justin Prince, how much of this falls on Jimmy Mullis' shoulders, and how much does he really control the strategy here?
I think he secures / controls a fair bit of it. He's actually, I think, communicating on the radio, when is he going to come down to pit? Because here's the thing. You can gain about a second or two a lap with the undercut, with the amount of fall-off. We've ran the 36.2s to 6s at the start of the race. Now most drivers are in the 42nd bracket. So this could be a chance for these drivers to have the freshest tires at the end of the race. I think it's going to definitely come down in part to him, as well as how long he stays out. Should note, Eddie Carter, Tucker Minter, Nathan Rabideau, and Nathan Lyon just pit this time by.
I was about to say, we had a few more drivers come down pit road for service, so this now becomes a waiting game, and we'll see who flashes down pit road when the field comes back around to turn 4. This is lap 35 of 55, so entering 20 laps to go. And the earlier you come down, the more benefit you gain if we go green the rest of the way. Here comes Jimmy Mullis, the race leader, in on lap 35. He's going to bring a few more cars with him as the rest of the field screams down the front straightaway. But the number 46 Coca-Cola Energy Toyota Camry for Richmond Raceway Esports is in. Dylan Basin is 2, as is Alex Bell, Lucas Cram, Alexander Krunke, Zachary Phillips, Colby Wells, and Braxton DeWeese all down pit road for service on lap 35.
And this opens up the door for drivers, I think, to come in the next time, if not the following lap on by, to try and strategize and follow up with him, because the concern is Mullis was quick, especially in the short run. It's going to get intense, and several leaders coming down this time by. Blake Reynolds will lead them, in fact, after he pushed before the window opened.
Everybody trying to woe it down as best they can, but this is everybody, and I think they somehow just managed to make it in as Reynolds nearly turned across Spencer Burns' nose, but de Blasio, McKissick, Boulos, McCandless, Burrows, Rabel, with Ryan Kendrick, John Midget, but Blake Reynolds, the big one at the front of the field, in on lap 36 of 55. And now we wait to see what Evan Rice will do. He is now your race leader, and there are 9 cars that have yet to pit. It's Rice, Macaulay, Brown, Salek, Sora, Danson, Ickes, Delicado, and Jabo. Justin Patello, and Rice is going to make the call to come down this time by, and we'll see who else he brings in. The 98 machine is in, as is Cody McCauley, as is Justin Brown, Colton Salek, Matt Danson. Looks like Jabo, I think, managed to slide into pit road as well. The Splash and Go graphics machine is actually, and Nick and Delicato comes down pit road. So plenty of names here to watch. It's now down to Presley Sawyer and J-Bo. Those two are the final two that have yet to come down pit road, JP.
And here's the concern, though, with them if they try and stay out here is, yes, they try and get track position, I think, if they get a caution flag of this period. But the tough part is here, and this is the big part, is that everyone else I expect to stay out this rate with just few laps. It's not going to work out, I don't quite think, for Sawyer and J-Bo unless they get something about 6-7 laps law number one, to say the very least. And oh, by the way, a lot of the Coke drivers are now hooking up here, just like you've seen Lyon and Moas. Moas try to use Lyon to help push him forward with the draft, while Eddie Kerner is just watching in the back wings and just saying, I'm just going to follow you, Moas, I guess.
You've got Mullis and Lyon, who are officially Coke Series drivers, and Eddie Kerner, no, he's not part of the Coke Series, but he's been quick all year long. We said earlier he won the last Landon Castle qualifying challenge from Darlington in May. He's top 5 currently in the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro points. He is all but secured a position in the 2020 eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series, and I think he's going to be a heavy, heavy favorite to make it into the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series in 2021. You won't miss the Neonism car when it comes across the racetrack. It is a gigantic rainbow of, shall we call it, Cybertronism. It's a fantastic scheme in the 98, but you've also got a really fantastic driver behind the wheel of that car too, JP.
Yeah, and he actually changed technical alliances we talked about in some of the most recent Road to Pro broadcasts on Podium Esports. Was he elected to switch over to Dead Zone Racing, which has affiliations with Total Advantage Motorsport machines, which have dominated this season, as well as some eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series driver with their technical support, like Nathan Lyon, Graham Bowen, and a few others. That type of speed can be very crucial for the qualifiers, as well as if you do make it to the next levels, it gives you the support not just to help that team, but learn as a driver yourself and lean upon the drivers who have been there to learn from. So that can be absolutely huge, and I think that's really been helping Kerner this year, especially with the attention he's been bringing to that 98 machine, and the speed's been showing. Oh, by the way, as you've seen, J-Bo, he's hoping for the caution flag, as we just talked about, James. He could stretch it another 5 laps on the fuel.
One final point on Eddie Kerner making the move to Dead Zone. You know who else is part of Dead Zone? How about the driver who won the most recent eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series event here at Michigan last week, Casey Kerwin. So yeah. Plenty of experience for Eddie Kerner to lean on, but all eyes here on J-Bo as we wait to see when he comes down pit road, how long he can stretch it. The most we've seen in racing at Michigan is about 50 laps. I don't hear the 20 rolling on the clutch on corner entry at all, so it doesn't look like he's necessarily trying to save fuel. I think this is all about trying to catch the caution when you need it. As we'll take a moment to remind you all that tonight's broadcast of the ERL is brought to you by our friends at SimSeats. Since 2009, SimSeats has been designing and fabricating high-quality driving simulators, including motion systems, turnkey iRacing packages, and custom fabrication pieces, all made right here in the United States of America. Their customer base includes all kinds of drivers, from amateurs to professionals, and their passion for racing drives them to build better sim racing equipment. Don't limit your track times to the weekend. Visit www.simseats.com for more information on how you can get behind the wheel of a SimSeats rig today. J-Bo still your leader coming to lap 44. He will be close, and should he come down pit road if we don't get a yellow flag, the man in control of this field and the man who would take over the race lead, a familiar face, Anthony Alfredo, the 46 of Jimmy Wallace.
Absolutely, he will take the lead here once J-Bo does pit, and I'm curious to see when he does. If he's just gonna, at this point, I think he's committed. He's gonna have to run it out as long as he can until that thing starts sputtering because it's so low on fuel. That's gonna be the time he's gonna have to hit pit road, unless the caution does fly, and that'll work out in his favor, as we were talking about that strategy earlier in the race. But it's crazy to me that we've already gone green flag up until this point with how intense the racing was. We saw almost 4 wide for the lead at one point, which was phenomenal and so awesome to see in our first race. I know everyone's excited about that, the competitors and everyone watching. It's been a fun one to watch. And another thing, going back to what you were saying about how packed up the field is.
Caution!
First caution of the race right here.
First caution of the race. That absolutely is a gift from the clouds for Justin Matello as Eli Hinton goes around off of turn 4. He trying to go up and just climb in front of Justin Brown coming off of turn 2. They make contact, and Lucas Cram has nowhere to go. You'll see the replay momentarily. But yellow flag here, and how big of a lifesaver is that for J-Bo Anthony, because that is exactly the kind of break he needed.
That was phenomenal, and I think I jinxed it. So next time we're wondering if there's going to be a caution, maybe I should just mention it and we'll get one again. But I know J-Bo appreciates that right there, because that made his strategy well worth it now. He's going to have great track position for this next stop. And one thing I don't think we mentioned yet on the broadcast is they only have 2 sets of tires laying in the pit. So all those guys who already pit, this will be their final set of tires. We watch the replay of the crash right here.
And take a look here, just a little coming together on the back straightaway coming off of turn 2. It was not a lot, but it was just enough. And yes, Anthony, I think the commentator's curse here at Podium Esports spreads to anyone that ends up in the booth. It doesn't matter whether or not it's one of us that's here on a regular basis or a distinguished or special guest like yourself. So now we have to worry about the way this changes the strategy and how J-Bo plays this A, and then B, maybe more importantly, given that everybody else has about 10 laps on their tires, is there value in everyone else coming down pit road and following Jimmy Wallace in the under 20 machine? The answer to that question is, for the most part, yes, save for the 88 machine and looks like the 57 who are a lap down, so they'll come back around and probably take the wave around to get back in position. But everybody down pit road, JP, on what should be the money stop.
And you know what I just noticed as well? Several of the drivers who were at the back of the field, there's an interesting thing you may notice when it comes to Michigan is, say the pace car's at the end of the racetrack and the pit lane opens down the backstretch. If you're still catching up to the field and say you're involved in the incident, you have the chance to say, come down at that time. So several drivers have done so. Here's the downside. They won't be able to pass the cone to get there. There's also the gamble of, will drivers elect to try and risk it with there being under 10 laps to go? Just one has tried it. Everybody else in the field here, James, just took 4.
Everybody on 4 tires here, and how about this? Presley Sora has stayed out, and I wonder if he may be the one driver to try and make it on old tires and hold off everybody for the race win. Might not be the worst of strategies here. Sora was in 14th coming to the line that last time by, so he'll gain about 13 spots on track to take over the race lead, but it's old tires. So back to our driver who knows how these cars drive better than anybody else in this booth. Anthony, 8 laps on tires versus 1 lap on tires. That approximate 10-lap difference. What do you notice in particular compared to maybe a 20-lap difference in tires or a 30-lap difference in tires, especially here at Michigan?
I'd say here at Michigan, the biggest thing you'd notice is your front tire wear in particular, because it's very easy to get tight. What tight means is you need to turn the wheel a lot more than you feel like you should just to get the car to turn, and it's not turning as well as it should be in the balance of the race cars into your liking. And when that happens, you end up wearing those front tires more because you're ultimately slipping the tires more and rubbing more of that rubber off the tires. So the more obviously you run on the tires, the worse that gets. And one of those things that factors into that is the further back into the field you are. So when they're packed up like that and you're in what we call dirty air, you're behind other cars, you don't have fresh air, clean air on the front of the car to add downforce and help the car turn, because the suspension and all that isn't loaded properly. So that makes it even worse. So some of these guys up front, they might be able to stay out and make it work and be okay, but guys further in the back, they definitely need to take new tires here, I would imagine, unless they have, you know, 1 or a couple laps on them. But any more than that, it's going to make it a big challenge to make something happen, if not even maintain at the end of this race.
Going to be very, very tricky to see how this all pans out, and very, very interesting to see how Presley Sora can hang on. Lights are off on the pace car. We will take the green flag on lap number 49, so just over 5 laps to go in this Belly Up Sports 110, the season opener for Season 2 of the Esports Racing League, presented by SimSeat. Sora will be the control car, and of Mullis, Patello, Lyon, Kerner, Reynolds, Minter, Spencer Ebers, Blake McCandless, Braden Bulos, your top 10. We'll wait and see where that 30 car goes. Pace car is already down and on pit lane. He's going to wait pretty deep in the box to go and hold everybody back. They take off. I think he got a little help from Jay Bro. It looks like they stacked up a little bit in the middle of the field. So Sora didn't get the greatest of runs off the corner. They start to fan out 3-4 wide behind the number 30 machine, and they may go crazy. We got people on the apron going into turn 1, and it might be even more nuts by the time they get to 2. Here comes Mullis to the outside, JP.
And there's the tightness right there. Everyone just making the 30 a sitting duck here. Jay Bonieri got hit. Here comes the freight train, though, of Coke drivers. This is what Mullis wanted to see. The difficult part is, can he hold off Nathan Lyon and Blake Reynolds? Now that they're up here, can he hold off the rest of the field who's still stuck behind the 30 contact?
Contact there. Spencer Burns around the 98 into the wall. They wreck across the front straightaway. Yellow flag is out. Big incident over in turn 4. This will almost certainly guarantee us some form of green-white checker, but trouble, trouble, trouble. And it feels like a near mirror of what happened to Justin Bolton in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series event last Tuesday. He was the one who stayed out on old tires and eventually just got swallowed up in all of this. And it was with that 30 car that this all started. He got tight trying to hang on to it on corner exit, JP, and just ran out of room, ran into Blake Reynolds.
Yeah, right there, you see him just tapping the back end. The 30 was checking up to make sure he didn't get tight and hit Reynolds. And Spencer Burns just got the very edge, it seemed, to the back bumper, and then all calamity ensued as they all pinballed into one another. Just nowhere to go for a lot of the drivers, with them being 3-4 wide in the middle of the pack.
Just trying to take a look at some of the names that came in, and Anthony, a big miss there, and I don't think there's much you could do, especially off a restart.
No, definitely not. What I was about to say was Blake Reynolds, watch this replay, looked like an absolute pinball bouncing off just about everyone in the field, it seemed. He was trying so hard to gather that car back up, and it looked like every time he just about had it back underneath him, he got tagged by someone else or slid down into someone else. And right here, when you see him get tagged, the 06 also got tagged by the 30, and that was just a chain reaction. And this is what we call the big one in super speedway racing, and with how tight together the cars are running tonight, that was definitely a super speedway-like wreck.
Just trying to take account of all the drivers involved in that. Adam de Blasio was one of the first to go around. Evan Rice got caught up in all this. A whole bunch of people in the back. Cody McCauley, Chris Rabel, Dylan Basin went sideways. Braxton DeWeese was involved. Spencer Burns was caught up in all this. A few drivers towards the back actually managed to make their way around it, but nowhere to go for Robert Hanrada, who ended up in trouble. Looks like the 14 machine of Zachary Phillips had nowhere to go in all of this. Just a tremendous amount of folks who were taken out of contention here, and it leaves us with, I would say realistically, about maybe 20-25 cars that are still clean and have a shot to win this JP.
Yeah, but here's the tricky part, and where the track position now really starts to settle on in is, by the time we get to green, there'll be about maybe 3 to go. And that doesn't include if we get an air incident before then. So it's going to come down to how good the drivers have been tonight on the short run and how confident they can be in trying to make moves. Because in our words, if you want to win this race, you're going to need to be bold. And if you're, say, in front of the field, you're going to need to be willing to defend and be bold on some of your blocks to try and hold on to that front of the field by the time you get to turn 3.
Also, note Sora has come in server and said that he got hit from behind into Blake Reynolds' door and apologizes, but also said there wasn't much he could have done to prevent the contact. So there's the story from Sora's side of things. Not sure if Reynolds sees it the same way, but in either case, we'll worry about that later and focus right now on the events that you can find in the world of Podium Esports and iRacing coming up over the next week. Sunday night, we're back on air on twitch.tv/Podium Esports as the GameWorks Racing Series continues its season from from Texas Motor Speedway, a personal favorite of Mr. Alfredo in the booth. You'll see that broadcast Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on the Podium Esports Twitch channel. Then come back on Monday night to the Podium Esports Twitch channel for the Nemesis Lab 125 from the Daytona International Speedway Road Course for the Sim 500 Trans Servers Cup Series, the first big race to use the new road course layout at Daytona, and that will start at 9 p.m. next Monday night before the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series takes to the road course at Daytona on Tuesday night. You'll find that broadcast on iRacing's Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube at 9 p.m. Eastern next Tuesday, August 11th, before we're back at it with the Esports Racing League from the Daytona road course next Wednesday night, August 12th, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on twitch.tv/ERL_racing. Lap 53 will be the one on the board when we go back to green flag racing. So 3 laps to go, not quite a green-white checker, but Mullis is now your control car over Lyon, Patello, Kerner, Minter, and company. Presley Shaw still up in the mix after that incident, and so much to be determined over the final 3 laps. Will Mullis wait and go as late in the box as Sora did on that most recent restart? He will, and he'll try, and Lyon tried to jump it and ended up having to give up the track position back to the 46 machine, and that stacked everybody up behind him, and they start fanning out 3 and 4 wide off into turn 1, JP.
It's a bold move. You see the back end of the top 10 to try and protect that yellow line here. It's going to be key to try and make sure you carry the momentum and are not in the wrong spot. You can make some of the moves on the higher line down the front stretch, but you want to be lower down in the corners. Here comes the push, though, for Lyon.
A big push from Nathan Lyon. He just gave a shot to the 46 machine as the Monza Madness winner up top. Justin Patello trying to take advantage of the pit strategy to get the win. He's got help from Eddie Kerner and Anthony Alfredo. They come to 2 laps to go. Contact with the 29 machine. They're still fanning out on the front stretch.
Everyone's trying to get all they can right here. Coming to the 2 to go at the line. You see Jimmy Mullis and Nathan Lyon working together here. 2 Coke Series drivers running up front here, but don't count out J-Bo. He's held on here. That strategy worked perfectly for him, and he's still in position. But as I mentioned before about the help from behind, he did not have it right there and got freight trained. But if Jimmy commits to Nathan right here, hopefully someone rolls with J-Bo for his sake in order to try to get it done tonight.
You got J-Bo and Eddie Kerner up top, Nathan Lyon and Jimmy Mullis down to the bottom, and behind them, Tucker Minter and Blake McCandless making a late charge as they come to the white flag here in the Belly Up Sports 110 at Michigan International Speedway. Mullis still your race leader. They're side by side for second and for fourth as they come through 1 for the final time.
I think here, James, this is going to come down to the final corner here. Trying to protect the bottom has to be the goal for Mullis here. By the time they go to the backstretch, I think if you're Lyon, you have to send it.
You may have to go crazy. We'll see what J-Bo can do up top. He's got the room to roll the momentum. Can he pinch down Jimmy Mullis and get the run he needs up high to try and take this race away from the 46? Big run, though, from Mullis out of turn 4. He's going to have to block Lyon to the start-finish line. He goes down to the apron, but it won't be enough. Jimmy Mullis begins his title defense in the Esports Racing League, presented by SimSeats, with a victory at Michigan International Speedway in the Belly Up Sports 110. And if you're trying to go back-to-back, Anthony Alfredo, that's a pretty good way to start off your campaign.
Absolutely. Jimmy Mullis picked up right where he left off after last season winning half of the events nearly, and to come out on top in the first event of an even more competitive season has got to feel good for him, and I know he's pumped about that as well as his whole team. But what a phenomenal race tonight, going back to not only the racing Michigan International Speedway provides us with cars that are so close together, but a fixed setup league like the ERL, where these drivers all share the exact same setup, which makes it very exciting and puts it in the driver's hands and makes it so tight together, not only on speed, but to provide awesome finishes like this.
Another victory for Toyota here in the Irish Hills in Michigan, which I think is the last thing the folks at Chevrolet and Ford want to see, but they got the victory in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series last week with Casey Kerwin. They now have Coca-Cola Energy in victory lane with Jimmy Mullis and Richmond Raceway Esports also going to celebrate this one too. Brandon Brown and company very excited, I bet, about this one as we take you through the full field rundown and tell you where your favorite driver finished. Jimmy Mullis, your race winner over Nathan Lyon for Roush Fenway Racing in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. Justin Botello, the Monza Madness champion, back from Easter Sunday, played the pit strategy beautifully and got the caution when he needed, turns it into a P3 at the end of the night from 35th on the grid, no less. Tucker Mintzer finished in the 4th spot after starting 17th. A top 5 for Eddie Kerner. That number 98 was strong all race long. Blake McCandless with the late charge to get the 166 home in 6th. 7th was the 15 of Alex Bell. Yusuf Ghali came home in the 8th spot. Late charge for him, too. Colton Salek was 9th, and Braden Poulos rounded out the top 10, JP.
Anthony Burrows got shuffled out to P11. Remember, he was in that 29 machine, which danced around the front straightaway in that loose moment coming to 2 to go. Nick Indalcadio finished in P number 12. Matt Danson in 13th. Eli Hinton back in P14 after being involved in an incident earlier on. Nathan Rabideau in 15th. Blaze McKinney tried the undercut early on in this race during the green flag run. He finishes in P16. That was actually a plus for him from where he was as far back as the 30s. Cronkite finished behind him in 17th. Presley Sorer and Lucas Cram 18th and 19th. And Justin Brown rounds out your top 20 tonight, James.
21st this evening was Malachi Drake. Victor Williams finished in 22nd. Colton Zimmer came home 23rd, and 24th went to Colby Wells. Braxton DeWeese competed in the first season of the ERL. He finishes in 25th. Dylan Basin came home 26th. 27th to Brandon McKissick of the 24 machine. Zachary Phillips finished in 28th. 29th to the 1 car of Jared Ickes. And John Midget, another ERL veteran from season 1, came home in 30th.
Like Kendrick and Air, one of those veterans back in 31st spot, stayed to the back much of the night. Blake Reynolds played the strategy very perfectly. Went to the mid-pack during the long green flag run, pushed before the start of pit stops, had the chance to win the race, then got involved in that second caution flag of the night, finishes 32nd. And Blasio also was a leading contender all night. P33, Spencer Burns, your pole sitter, who led many of the laps tonight in 34th, while Robert Hanrada finished in 35th, 3 laps down. The rest of the drivers also did not finish. McCauley, Rabel, Rice, Martinez, Kevin Brown were your drivers who did not make it to the checkered.
And that is your full field rundown for this Belly Up Sports 110, the season opener for Season 2 of the Esports Racing League, presented by SimSeats. And we now turn our attention to Victory Lane and to a man that is very familiar with this booth here on the ERL channel. Jimmy Mullis comes home with another victory and starts just like he means to go on, I figure, after winning the season finale at Charlotte in the spring. He comes back, gets it done at Michigan to start off Season 2. And Jimmy, I think a lot of your race was made early on, and the decision to charge to the front so quickly. We made the point on the broadcast that making a charge like that is easier to do at the beginning of a race than through the middle or towards the end when the field is more spread out. How important was it for you, and how big was it for you, and how much did you have it in your head to try and get up to the field as quickly as possible when you took the green flag?
Well, to be completely honest with you, when we got the drop of the green flag, I was like, man, I don't think I'm going to be able to go anywhere. And then everything just kind of worked out for me. I don't think if we went back in time, I could repeat that perfectly ever again. I have absolutely no idea how I got to the front that fast, but I know it was fun, and I want to give a shout out to everybody in the field for running clean. We almost went caution free, so that was pretty cool. Had a lot of fun tonight, and yeah, excited to be back and talking to you guys.
I think it's going to be entertaining to see how the season plays out and how we work through some of the different tracks. But before we bother with the different tracks, just the racing at the front at the end and the importance of maintaining the help from Nathan Lyon. It looked like that 6 car was really instrumental in keeping Jabo and Eddie at bay. How important was it to have a sort of co-opetition-y pseudo teammate in the 6 to get you to victory lane tonight?
Oh, it was huge. I had to thank Nathan when he came into the Discord. I honestly thought he was going to put me 3 from the get-go, and it seemed like he committed to my bumper. I know he was telling me that he was trying to set up to where he had a better shot at passing me without Jabo being involved, and I think we just didn't have enough laps for that to kind of work itself out. But yeah, I mean, if he wasn't there and it was somebody else, I can 100% promise you I would have been sent to the back.
Would have been hanging way back there. And You come on here with 2 wins in a row, I guess, in ERL competition, 3 if you count Martinsville towards the end of last season. But it's a road course now that we go to, the Daytona road course, which will play host to our race next Wednesday night. And it's a bit of a different kettle of fish for everybody. So what's the game plan to try and make it 4 in a row in ERL competition?
Well, obviously, been putting a lot of time in for that race in terms of the Coca-Cola series. So just, take whatever I learn over these next couple days going into Tuesday, and, whatever I learn Tuesday night, and try to carry it into Wednesday. And, hopefully we can, have 2 solid runs next week at that road course. I know it's been really tough. It's a difficult track, but it's exciting to be somewhere new, and, excited to see how it races.
I know there are a lot of people behind the operation, Jimmy, not the least of which the Richmond Raceway Esports Group, fueled by Sunoco, of course. But who else do you need to thank besides Brandon Brown and company over there?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Brandon, Richmond Raceway Esports, Coca-Cola Energy, Sim Seats, Sunoco, JDR Graphics, and want to, again, shout out to Sunoco and Coca-Cola. They sent me a lot of cool stuff over the last week or so from, my win at New Hampshire in the Coca-Cola series a couple weeks ago. So that's been really cool, just, being a part of all that. And also want to give a shout out to my teammates at Lockdown Racing, Zach Novak, and all the guys. It's unfortunate he couldn't race tonight. He had some power issues. Storm's been, hitting him pretty bad. And I also want to thank you guys, as always, for doing the broadcast. I love talking to you guys, and thank you, Anthony, for putting the league on.
Yeah, if y'all haven't been over to Jimmy's Twitter in the past few days, you may or may not have seen that the folks at Sunoco Racing sent him one of the victory flags like you see in Victory Lane when everybody's doing the hat dance. It looks just like what you'd find if you were in Victory Lane at New Hampshire or Dover or anywhere else. And then I think Coca-Cola Consolidated sent you a crystal can.
Yes.
To victory. So a lot of cool goodies that you get. And one of the reasons why Jimmy Mullis is in very good hands with Richmond Raceway Esports and Sunoco Racing. Congratulations on your victory tonight. And Jimmy, thanks as always for coming up into the booth and speaking with us. And we look forward to seeing you at the Daytona Road Course next Wednesday night.
Thanks, buddy.
Jimmy Mullis comes home P1 this evening. P2 was Nathan Lyon, who makes his debut in the ERL, presented by Sim Seats with a solid runner-up finish, and he is with our Justin Patello.
Yes, indeed. And Nathan, I've always seen you, when it comes to a lot of official races in NIS, want a challenge. You had a challenge tonight of starting shotgun on the field. How difficult was it for you to cut your way through the field and put yourself in the conversation for the win tonight?
Yeah, it's kind of difficult because there's only 55 laps, so it's not a lot of time to mess around and save tires in the back. You got to go from lap 1. So starting 40th, I could feel it set and save a little bit, but not too much because I only made it up to I think just outside the top 5 before the first run. So really, with how little laps there are, you got to almost queue well and stay up front the whole race to have a shot to win these things.
Jimmy Mullis mentioned in his interview he had to thank you for not taking you 3 wide down the backstretch. Talk us through that final 3-lap run where you were focused on helping Mullis or getting the points rather, or what was the plan down in those final laps to try and win the race?
I guess a little bit of both. I was thinking about making sure I got a solid run, a top 5, and I thought if I make a move with 2 or 3 to go at the wrong spot and I get shuffled all the way back to 10th, I could get caught in a wreck and end up finishing 30th. So I want to try and save my move to the last lap, whether it's turn 1, backstretch, turn 3. And there was an opportunity that I could have had on the backstretch on the final lap, but I didn't take it because I felt like I could have made something work in 3 and 4. But I ended up just backing off my pace a little bit too much in turn 3 and could never get the run that I needed to get around him.
Next race on the calendar for this series just so happens to be right after you head to the Daytona Road Course for the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. First, how's that preparation been so far, and what should drivers expect to see in both Tuesday and Wednesday's races?
I think a lot of carnage because the new chicane, it's very small, very tight, kind of like the Roval is, so you can't really do a whole lot of side-by-side racing, and that is going to be give and take. But some guys on these road courses, they don't want to give and take, so I think there's going to be some accidents from that. And of course, even with the chicane added on, I mean, you're carrying a lot of speed going into one, it's such a hard braking zone. I mean, somebody could lock up the brakes and cause a pileup. Also, you know, you have to race on the oval. I mean, we could go 2 and 3 wide on the oval if we need to, so it's going to be pretty crazy.
Who do you like to thank for being a part of your top 3 run to start off this series' campaign?
Of course, you guys for doing the broadcast, Anthony for doing the league. It's an awesome league. Everyone at Roush Family Racing for having me on board for 2020. All my partners like Coke and Castrol and Oscar Meyer. Everyone at Dead Zone Racing. Cosmat Splash and Go Graphics for paying the awesome cars that I've had this year. That's it.
Thank you very much for your time. Congratulations on the 2nd place finish to start the season to make it a Coke Driver 1-2.
It is a Coke Driver 1-2 for Nathan Lyon, who gets the job done. And we now go from Nathan Lyon to the top finishing driver outside the Coke Series in tonight's season opener for the Esports Racing League presented by SimSpeeds. And a man who's also been in a Podium Esports booth before, the winner of Monza Madness back in April, Justin Patello now joins us. And Jabo, the strategy that got you up to the front, we have to talk about it because it made everything go for you tonight. Take us through the decision to stay out when everybody else came down under green.
Man, I just decided to do something different there, and I saw everybody pitting, and it was pretty much the only shot I had. You know, I was all the way back there in 30th, and I just wanted to try something different. So it worked out. I'm glad we got all the way up there. We got the lead for a little bit, and made a good call.
Made a very good call indeed, and I think especially to jump in here, first race in the Esports Racing League, and so much talent in this field. You're not guaranteed a spot at all any week you run. How much fun is the competition and the quality in the series going to make running Season 2 of the ERL for you?
It's a ton of fun. I mean, racing with those guys, they're some of the best out there. I mean, we got pros out there. We have some of the best people on iRacing, and I think it's a lot of fun. So whenever you're racing with them, it's just an honor. You know, it's really cool to race with some of these guys. You know, they're fast and they're really good. So I was really enjoying it up front. I was trying everything I could do to try and race with them, but they're just so good. And they had a lot of help on the bottom there. I had me and Eddie were trying to get that top rolling, but it was just so hard. And it was a lot of fun, though. I really enjoyed it.
We turn our attention now from Michigan, big, fast, wide, very much quasi-plate track and appearance, to the Daytona Road Course, which is as close to an unknown as we have ever seen in iRacing. Everybody's going to jump on there and I think take a lot of time to practice because that's where we're going next week. So what do you expect to see at the Daytona Road Course? And what kind of race do you think we can have in the ERL next Wednesday night?
I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think there's going to be a lot of unknowns, a lot of practice for sure. I think it's going to be a fun race, and I got to practice for sure. I have no idea what I'm going to do around there, so hopefully not in the grass a lot, but I can't wait. It's going to be fun, and looking forward to it.
J-Bill, I know there's so many people you need to send thank yous and shout-outs to, so who gets the love for the number 20 car with that?
I want to thank my sponsor, Fort Worth Screen Printing, for always being there and sponsoring my stream and everything. So thank you for my stream and everybody. Splash and Go with the paint. And thank you for the league, Anthony Alfredo, putting this on. Really cool stuff. So thank you guys for broadcasting.
J-Bill, congratulations on your podium finish. Thank you so much for the time as always. And we'll see you next Wednesday night for down in Daytona.
Sounds good. See y'all.
Justin Bow 20. Justin Patello, man, in 3rd place tonight. And Anthony Alfredo, if you wanted a good solid start to ERL competition in the fall of 2020, this is a pretty good way to do it. Action all over the place. Drivers going 3 and 4 wide. It's going to be different next week at Daytona, but I'd say by all accounts, ERL Season 2 off to a flying start.
Absolutely. That was such a great race tonight. It was incredible to watch them race so tight together and so competitively for so long without a caution flag. And we had that one late in the race that made it exciting for not only us up in here in the booth, but everyone watching the race on all our social media platforms. And I appreciate you guys helping out with the broadcast tonight because this is the first of many exciting ones for us, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the year. This is an intense start, so to have 12 races remaining is going to be incredible to see the way it shakes out throughout the remainder of the season. And of course, once the points start getting down to the wire and we see guys competing for that $300 bonus put up by SimSpeeds driving simulators.
Plenty, I think, to compete for. Not just the prizes and not just all the fun that you can get from winning ERL races, JP, but the level of competition. We've talked about it over and over again tonight. It's going to be so crucial, I think, in making this ERL season so special. And it's a storyline we're going to talk about every week because we don't know who's racing in the field next week. We could see some of these same drivers. We could see almost 20 new names involved. There are 24 drivers that did not make the field tonight that will have to come back and try and qualify next week. And that's going to throw many curveballs into the way this ERL season progresses.
Yeah, when it comes to the Daytona Road Course, that's going to be a massive curveball. I'm expecting a lot of different drivers because several of the competitors we've seen in the field tonight, we've seen in the Road to Pro race, James, just last night on Podium Esports, and struggle. So the competition level to get into the Daytona Road Course race is going to be massively high. I'm expecting a lot of road course racers actually to punch their ticket into the main show come August the 12th. It's going to be absolutely entertaining.
I think it's a good thing for everybody that Bobby Zelensky might not be in the ERL because you know he'd be a favorite to win next week, but there are a lot of good drivers with road course talent in this series. You have to be solid all around in order to be successful in the ERL, and the Daytona Road Course is going to be the first of multiple road course races in the ERL presented by SimSeats in 2020. So keep your eyes peeled. But before we get to the Daytona Road Course next week, plenty of events to tell you about coming up here in the world of iRacing. Many of it you'll see on the Podium Esports Twitch channel, our usual home at twitch.tv/Podium Esports, which is where we'll start next week. GameWorks Racing Series from Texas Motor Speedway. We know Anthony's a big fan of Texas in Sim. And you'll see the broadcast of that race August 9th, next Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the Podium Esports Twitch channel. Before Monday night, you can come right back at 9 p.m. Eastern to see the Sim 500 Trans-Service Cup Series tackle the Daytona Road Course in the Nemesis Lab 125 next Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. Also on twitch.tv/Podium Esports. Before the big show on Tuesday night, the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series goes to the Daytona Road Course for the first time ever. August 11th, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. iRacing's Twitch, iRacing's Facebook, iRacing's YouTube, the place to be to see the best of the best in stock car sim racing go at it before we're back here on twitch.tv/ERL_racing for round 2 of the Esports Racing League from the Daytona Road Course. You'll see our broadcast right here, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, next Wednesday night, August 12th. 70 minutes of road course racing coming your way as these drivers will do their best 24 hours of Daytona impression and try and get their stock cars wheeled around the World Center of Racing. So much to talk about, so much to bring from this first race of the Esports Racing League presented by SimSeats, but most importantly, a tremendous thank you to all of our partners at the ERL, to Belly Up Sports for their partnership in tonight's race, for SimSeats and all the support that they give, and everybody at Team Dillon Esports and Anthony Alfredo's operation at Richard Childress Racing to help make all this possible. And thank you to all the people that have made it possible as well. Our team at Podium Esports, Cisco Scamuza, Gary Sexton, John Theodore, and our team at the booth tonight, Justin Prince, our producer Ryan Ballard, and the man Anthony Alfredo himself. I am James Punt, the voice of Podium Esports. Thank you so much for watching Podium's coverage of the Esports Racing League presented by SimSeats, and congratulations to Jimmy Lewis, winner of the season opening Belly Up Sports 125 from Michigan International Speedway. We'll see you Sunday night on twitch.tv/Podium Esports for the GameWorks Racing Series from Texas Motor Speedway. Good night.